I just saw Supergirl, and I don't think I really have enough to say about it to make a full review. So instead of a full review, I'm just going to give some thoughts on why I think it didn't do as well as it could have, both with critics and at the box office. Did I enjoy it? Yes. I think it's a pity that it's gonna be such a financial hit because that's gonna affect the direction that that DCU goes forward. Of course, maybe it'll be a good direction. It'll make some improvements because obviously this movie could have been much better. Here are my two main comments on why Supergirl is a little disappointing. Like the consensus now that's so much bad is just disappointing. And here are the two reasons I think that is. One is how dark and violent it is. Now, I don't let the cat out of the bag. I personally think that in a movie where the hero kills as many people as this, even if every one of them deserves it, I think should probably be an R-rated movie. I'm probably in the minority on that. But even regardless of how you feel about the specifics of that, here's what I think a lot of it has to do. The DCEU tried too hard to make things dark and gritty, and Superman did a good job of being more lighthearted and upbeat. And it's not that I'm against dark, gritty stuff. Here's what I think the problem is. The way I look at a superhero movie, an optimistic hero works in a dark and gritty world. A dark and gritty hero works in an optimistic world. G.K. Chesterton wrote that the irony of every generation, he said something like, the great irony of history is that each generation is converted by the saint who most contradicts it. So applying G.K. Chesterton's logic to movies in a dark, gritty, serious world, like in Superman, you have the conflict between Baravia and Jarhanpur, and you have the other heroes like Green Lantern and Hawk Girl being willing to use lethal force and, kind of being full of themselves in certain ways, especially Green Lantern, although it's the Guy Gardner Green Lantern, so that's accurate to the comics. But anyway, so Superman being optimistic and wholesome in a dark, gritty world full of real politics is a match. So someone as cynical and gritty as Supergirl in this interpretation, I personally think would have worked better if you were contrasting her with a brighter, more vibrant, more optimistic world, especially because then the moments that you let the gritty underbelly of this world, like the aspects of this, the criminal underworld that Lobo inhabits, shine through, it would be more impactful. But if the world is dark and gritty and the hero is dark and gritty and cynical, it all kind of runs together. So that's the first problem I think this movie had. And here's the second problem. And I'll show you, and I might show here that I know more about comics than DC Comics than a lot of people, but I'm not the first person to turn to for comics knowledge when I say this. Superman, if you remember, they kind of drop us right into the middle of this world where, it's accepted that, superhuman beings like Supes, like Green Lantern, Hawk Girl exist. And I think that had to do with a lot of unsuccessful superhero movies in the last 2 decades, especially recently, were criticized for dwelling too long on the origin story and not getting to the action. I know both the 2015 Fantastic Four, sorry about that. The 2015 Fantastic Four, which most people, sorry about that again. The 2015 Fantastic Four, which most people agree was an awful movie, in general, suffer on that. The original Fantastic Four, the Fantastic Four duology, the one that has Michael Chiklis and all of them in it, that one also spent too much time dwelling on the origin story. And so Superman kind of just drops in, Superman understood everyone in this room, even if they haven't read the comics or don't know the details about Jor-El or anything like that, most people here have an idea of who Superman is. And most people in this theater, can accept, okay, if Superman is in this world, that means there must be others. And you say Superman's in this world, so there are other super-powered humans too? Okay, show it to us, and we can learn about their backstories as the plot goes on. That is what Superman did, but I think Supergirl went too far in that direction. Unless you are really into the comics, a lot of this might go over your head, and unless you're really into the comics, a lot of times this movie, it's not going to feel like a superhero movie. It's going to feel like a space action adventure quest movie set in a universe where Superman, Supergirl, and Krypto happen to exist. That's when it feels like it's a space adventure movie set in a world where Superman, Supergirl, a universe where Superman, Supergirl, and Krypto, the Superdog, happen to exist. And I can't help but wonder, this was something I really hoped for with the movie Hellboy the Crooked Man, although the exact opposite of what I hoped for happened. I think because, the superhero genre broadly was so popular for a good run of time, but once you run out of stories until you start digging into the comics, and while comics are a lot more mainstream than they used to be, it's still a niche enough market that you're not going to hit a home run every time in terms of making something that everyone wants to see. And sometimes, because the world of these comics can get so expansive and elaborate, that's great when all you have to do is draw it, and you only need to make money by selling it to people who already like it. But the kind of money that you have to pour into a major blockbuster with all this interplanetary travel and all these elaborate casts of supporting characters, I wonder if you might run out. And so, what I hoped would happen with Hellboy the Crooked Man, for instance, which isn't what happened, unfortunately, was that a lower budget production could be accurate enough to the comics that between fans of Hellboy like myself, but paying money to see it, and low production costs, it could still make a profit and breathe new life into the franchise. Obviously, that didn't work for Hellboy the Crooked Man. I wonder if not for the DCU, because they have the budget to do anything they want, obviously. But at some point, I wonder if some of these, especially if people who want to try to make superhero or superhero adjacent kind of movies outside of the Marvel and DC universes, I wonder if some of them might have to, go back to basics of having something with a lesser scope, lesser scale, lower production costs, really appealing to the hardcore fans. And I wonder if that's where the animated films, Marvel and DC have both had those, Hellboy's had those too. I wonder if that might be where some of the world building goes. But in terms of blockbusters, we're just going to have to see what happens. I would not be surprised if, I think a lesson they can take from this is maybe have some more upbeat stuff where Supergirl is the one who comes in to provide the edge that you need, if you're going to go with this cynical vision of her that they went for in this movie. So those are my thoughts on the Supergirl movie. Supergirl movie. Take care, everybody, and God bless. Go with God.